The silence in our house had become a physical presence, a third occupant that my wife, Sarah, and I had learned to navigate around. It wasn't a hostile silence. Not exactly. It was the heavy, muffled kind that settles in after a great noise has faded, leaving your ears ringing and your world fundamentally altered. For us, that noise had been the constant, low-grade hum of conflict, the slammed doors and tearful accusations that had characterized the last 2 years of our marriage. Now, in the aftermath of a decision to separate, the quiet was both a relief and a condemnation. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind of bland, unremarkable weekday that makes up the bulk of a life. Sarah was at a late meeting, a new development in her life that felt both necessary and symbolic of our new distance. I was in the kitchen, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead, methodically cleaning up after a dinner I'd mostly eaten alone. Our son, Liam, had picked at his food, his 8-year-old brow furrowed with a concentration that seemed too weighty for his small frame. He was in the living room, the bluish glow of the television flickering against the hallway wall. I could hear the canned laughter of some cartoon, but I knew he wasn't really watching. I could feel his stillness, a small, tense island in the center of the house. This was our new normal. Me, trying to fill the roles of both mother and father in the fractured moments we were together. Him, retreating into a shell I couldn't seem to penetrate. We'd had the talks, of course, the carefully worded, child psychologist-approved explanations. Mommy and Daddy love you very much, but we're going to be living in different houses for a while. He'd nodded, his eyes wide and uncomprehending, and had asked if he could still take his favorite dinosaur, a battered stegosaurus named Spike, to both places. The clatter of the dishes I was loading into the dishwasher seemed unnaturally loud. I was scrubbing at a baked-on bit of cheese with a ferocity it didn't deserve when I felt a small presence at my elbow. I turned. Liam was standing there, his pajamas, the ones with the rocket ship Sarah had bought him for his birthday, seeming to swallow him whole. He was holding Spike by one leg, the dinosaur's head bumping against the tile floor. "Hey, buddy," I said, forcing a warmth into my voice I didn't feel. "Everything okay? Ready for bed?" He didn't answer immediately. His eyes, the same shade of hazel as his mother's, were fixed on my face with an unnerving intensity. He was studying me, as if trying to decipher a difficult code. "Dad," he said, his voice small but clear in the humming quiet of the kitchen. "Yeah, Liam. Can I ask you a question?" "Just you." A cold trickle of apprehension, completely irrational, ran down my spine. "Of course. Hell, you can ask me anything. Always." He took a deep breath, his small chest puffing out. He looked down at Spike, then back up at me, his gaze now direct and unwavering. "Dad," he began, and the gravity in his tone made my heart stutter. "If you and Mom got divorced, would you ever marry a man?" The world did not so much stop as it simply evaporated. The buzzing of the fluorescent light, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint scent of garlic and dish soap, it all vanished, sucked into a vacuum of pure, unadulterated shock. The plate I was holding slipped from my nerveless fingers, clattering into the stainless steel sink with a sound like a gunshot. It didn't break, but it might as well have. I stared at my son, my 8-year-old son. The words echoed in the sudden, ringing silence of my mind, nonsensical and terrifying. Marry a man? Where had that come from? What did that mean? My first, primal instinct was a surge of defensive panic. This was about me. Something he'd seen, something he'd sensed. A lifetime of conditioning, of growing up in a world that was only just beginning to grudgingly accept such things, screamed internal alarms. My mind raced, a frantic, shameful scramble through my own history, my own secret thoughts I'd never dared give voice to. I looked at Liam's face. It wasn't accusatory. It wasn't confused. It was simply curious. It was the same face he made when he asked why the sky was blue or where electricity came from. It was a question of pure, unvarnished inquiry. And in that moment, the foundation of my understanding of this situation, of my son, of myself, shattered. My mouth was dry as dust. I tried to form a word, any word, but nothing came out. I could feel a fine tremor starting in my hands, a vibration that traveled up my arms and into my core. I was literally shaking. I gripped the edge of the countertop, the cool granite a stark contrast to the sudden heat flushing my skin. "Liam," I finally managed, my voice a hoarse croak. Why would you ask that?" He shrugged, a small, helpless gesture. "I don't know. Just wondering." But his eyes told a different story. They were waiting, watching, holding a secret. Let's go sit down, buddy," I said, my legs feeling like they were made of water. I led him into the living room, away from the clinical brightness of the kitchen. We sat on the large, overstuffed sofa, The same one Sarah and I had picked out together in a fit of optimistic domesticity what felt like a lifetime ago. A vast chasm of cushion stretched between us. The cartoon was still playing, a brightly colored bird chirping manically about friendship. I took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to still the frantic beating of my heart. This wasn't about me. I had to make this not about me. Liam, I began again, forcing my voice into a calm, steady tone I was miles from feeling. That's a very serious question. Can you tell me what made you think of it? He fidgeted with Spike's tail, not meeting my eyes. At school, Kyle has 2 dads. He said they got married. And I was thinking, if you and mom aren't together anymore, you could marry someone else. And it could be anyone, right? The pieces began to click into place, slowly, painfully. This wasn't an accusation. This was a child's attempt to map the new, frightening contours of his world. His parents' separation had broken the fundamental model of family he'd known. In trying to understand the new rules, he was exploring all the possibilities. It was logical, in its own innocent way. The relief that washed over me was so profound it was almost nauseating. The shaking in my hands subsided, replaced by a deep, throbbing ache of guilt. My first thought, my instantaneous, visceral reaction, had been one of selfish, panicked self-preservation. I had failed him in that single, unguarded moment. But his question still hung in the air, delicate and immense. It wasn't just about the logistics of remarriage. It was about love, about identity, about the entire spectrum of human connection. And he was asking me alone. Okay, I said, nodding slowly. I understand. Thank you for telling me that. I paused, choosing my words with the care of a man defusing a bomb. You're right. If 2 people love each other and want to make a family, it doesn't matter if they are a man and a woman, or 2 women, or 2 men. What matters is that they love and respect each other, and that they love their children very, very much. Like Kyle's dads love him. He absorbed this, his brow furrowed. So, could you? The directness of it was breathtaking. He had circumnavigated the abstract and landed squarely back on me. His dad. I looked at my son, really looked at him. I saw the faint freckles across his nose, the cowlick at the crown of his head that refused to be tamed, the trusting openness in his eyes that was only just beginning to be clouded by the complexities of the world. This was my job now, in this fractured family, to be honest, to be a safe harbor, to answer the hard questions, even if they left me shaking. Liam, I said, my voice soft but firm, the person I marry, if I ever marry again, would be someone who is kind, and smart, and funny, and who loves you as much as I do. That's the most important thing to me. That person could be a woman, or they could be a man. What matters is the love, not the package it comes in. It was the first time I had ever articulated such a thought, even to myself. Saying it out loud, to my son, felt like both a confession and a liberation. The sky did not fall. The earth did not open up. The cartoon bird kept chirping. Liam considered this for a long moment. He looked at Spike, then back at me. A small, thoughtful frown played on his lips. Okay, he said simply. Okay, I prompted, my heart still thumping a wild rhythm against my ribs. Yeah, I just wanted to know. He slid off the couch, his question apparently asked and answered to his satisfaction. Can I have a glass of water before bed? Sure, buddy, I said, my voice thick with an emotion I couldn't name. Of course. I watched him pad back toward the kitchen, his small, sure footsteps a stark contrast to the seismic shift that had just occurred in the room he left behind. I sat there for a long time, listening to the clink of a glass, the running of the tap, the sound of my son being a child again. His world momentarily righted, but my world was upside down. The tremor had returned to my hands, but it was different now. It wasn't the shock of a personal accusation, it was the aftershock of a profound realization. My son's question had been a key, and it had unlocked a door inside me I had kept bolted shut for decades. That night, after I had tucked Liam in, read him a story, and kissed his forehead, I wandered through the silent, half-empty house like a ghost. I ended up in my home office, a small room cluttered with the detritus of a life I was no longer sure was mine. I sank into the chair and stared at the blank, dark screen of my computer. Marry a man. The words echoed, but now they were accompanied by a cascade of memories, long suppressed. The intense, confusing friendships with other boys in high school that felt different, more charged. The way I'd forced myself to hoop and holler at the cheerleaders while my eyes had sometimes, furtively, followed the star quarterback. The relentless performance of a masculinity I never quite felt I owned. Dating Sarah had been easy. It was what was expected. She was beautiful, brilliant, and I did love her. I loved our life. I loved the family we built. Our problems were real, but they were the problems of 2 people growing apart, of miscommunication and accumulated resentments. They had never been about a lack of love for her, but had they been about a lack of truth in myself? I had constructed a life, a solid, respectable, suburban life, on a foundation I had never dared to inspect. I had buried that part of me so deep I had almost convinced myself it didn't exist. And then my 8-year-old son, with one innocent, devastatingly simple question, had shone a light into that buried chamber. I thought about Sarah. Did she know? Had she always sensed the part of me I kept walled off? Was that silent, unnamable distance between us, in part, my doing? The guilt was a physical weight on my chest. The next few days passed in a surreal haze. I went to work. I picked up Liam from school. I made dinners. But I was a man going through the motions. My internal world was a raging sea. I watched Liam with a new, aching tenderness. His question had not been a judgment. It had been a gift. He had handed me a mirror and forced me to look into it. I knew I couldn't leave it there. The conversation couldn't be a one-off, a strange anomaly never to be revisited. He needed to know that his question was okay, that his curiosity was safe, that my love for him was unconditional and unwavering, no matter what his questions were, or what my answers might one day be. On Friday, I took him to the park. It was a bright, crisp afternoon, the kind that promises the start of something new. He was on the swings, pumping his legs, reaching for the sky. I stood nearby, pushing him when he asked. Liam, I said during a lull, you know that question you asked me the other night? About if I could marry a man? He slowed his swinging, dragging his feet in the wood chips. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for asking me that. He looked at me, curious. Why? Because it was a really good, really smart question, I said. And it's important to be able to ask your dad anything. And I want you to know, no matter what, that I love you more than anything in the whole world. Nothing you could ever ask or say will ever change that. Okay. He gave me a small, shy smile. Okay, Dad. And you know, I continued, my voice catching slightly, whoever I am, whatever happens, I will always be your dad. And I will always be proud to be your dad. He seemed to digest this, then nodded, his smile widening. Can you push me higher? And I did. I pushed him higher and higher, until his laughter rang out across the park. A pure, joyous sound that felt like a benediction. I watched him fly, the wind in his hair, and I felt a resolve harden within me. The shaking had stopped. In its place was a steady, clear-eyed certainty. The path ahead was terrifying. There were conversations to be had with Sarah, conversations that would be painful and messy and raw. There was a journey of self-discovery I was only just beginning, a long and winding road I would have to navigate. There was the potential for judgment, for misunderstanding, for loss. But as I watched my son soar against